Inspiration. It's likely we've all experienced it while looking up at the stars, yet few have realized it to the extent of Bosko Hrnjak, an accomplished painter, photographer, jewelry sculptor, and horticulturalist. He is best known as one of the most iconic Tiki carvers in the world. Reviving the lost art, his influence on the pop culture phenomena is just as profound as the inspiration he draws from. Observation and reflection, nature and culture. Bosco is able to transform abstract concepts into new forms, and while the work he creates is the product of being inspired, its effect on the viewer will be a source of inspiration for generations to come.
Where I grew up was in downtown Los Angeles. We lived in poorer Hispanic neighborhoods, so we were very isolated like that. We didn't speak English in the house, for instance. Once you would leave the house, Rosemead Boulevard again was the main drag, and then everything there had been developed in about the 50s. So the oldest McDonald's that you might know in Downey is still there. Elaborate neon signs, Polynesian apartment buildings with torches and tikis and waterfalls. It was very rich visually. To see tikis in your environment was a very, it was a normal thing. I didn't think it was a very odd thing until I got to college. What happened in college was I was essentially living in the same area. Alan Hess had just put out his book Googie. It was a seminally important book on mid-century architecture. After Googie had kind of started to decline in popularity, it then went over to this Polynesian style. And it just clicked on me, those buildings that I saw as a kid were a real style. It was just fascinating. And then I met Sven Kirsten, the guy who did Book of Tiki. He explained that each one of these carvers in California had his own unique style. And I can't express to you how that just rang in my head. It's like they were like real artists with a real discernible style, like a Rembrandt or a Picasso. And I decided I wanted to be an official Tiki carver. And so one of the goals was that I have a recognizable style, just like the old timers. Another goal was for my work to return to Polynesia, because in the 60s, so much of the carving they had there came from California. And the third goal was I wanted to build a real functioning bar. And I ended up doing that. It was the first bar to be built since the 70s at the Venetian. I built the Kapu Tiki room immediately when I moved here. And I started the large Easter Island head that you saw out there. That was immediately when I moved here. And as soon as I did that, I realized I wanted to have some more of a tropical kind of a feeling with the plants or the environment. And so then I started looking at plants differently. So I slowly started my plant collection, and I joined the Palm Society, and I met a few very wonderful people. And I began to realize I had gotten an education in this thing that I never set out to get an education for, but it's just wonderful. At some place about 15, 20 years ago, I discovered that there had been an abstract expressionist school in San Francisco on the West Coast. And for some reason, that like clicked in my head that it happened here in California as well. And then sometime after that, I ran into one of those how to do art books, the Walter Foster, I think they're called. And this one was how to do abstract art. And I had this vague idea kind of ringing in my head, oh, that'd be neat to make one of those paintings. So I got this book and said, well, okay, I'm gonna make one. And immediately it was like getting stuck in quicksand. It's like, this doesn't tell you anything. This is ridiculous. So I had to get through all that. Fortunately, it was a period that I didn't have a lot of work in the shop. I just worked for months, and there were a lot of duds at the beginning, and I hit one. It was just like magic. Like looking at nature, like when we were outside looking at the hill and the flowers in bloom up there, I mean, you could look at that forever, and your eye just circles around, and it's like looking in the cosmos, for instance. It's, you know, it may look random, but it's not. There is some sort of an order there. There's a game that I play when we're driving around in the evening through these new communities. I'll look inside the windows to see what do they have on the walls. And more often than not, they have nothing or a mirror. And I just think, how could a person live like that? I mean, how people can live in an environment without art surrounding them is just absolutely beyond me.